Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
In your own life, like you're an imposter? Today I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome, the 5 different types of imposters, and how to overcome it and have a clear and healthier mindset about yourself, your aspirations, and all of your achievements. So, what exactly is imposter syndrome? The term was first defined by clinical psychologists Dr. Clance and Dr. Imus in the 1970s. Imposter syndrome basically makes you feel like you're not ready, that you'll never be ready, so you should just stop or not even try, that you'll just simply not ever be good enough. Instead of realizing that it's normal to have feelings of self-doubt, that is actually a part of life, you take things to the extreme. It can affect everyone in any aspect of your life, any gender, race, from your work to relationships, friendships. It can go from CEO to student or a parent. Not everyone suffers with imposter syndrome in every aspect of their life, though. Some people can have it chronically where it does hit the main parts of your life. You live every single day, no matter what you're doing, you're always feeling like a fraud. But in the statistic that 70% of people suffer from imposter syndrome, they don't have it in every aspect of their life. It could just be certain parts. Like I said, from your workplace to friendships, parenting. So when it was actually first being researched, they thought only women could have imposter syndrome. And to this day, it is more common in women. 70% of women compared to 50% of men say that they experience imposter syndrome. So there is a gap, but not a huge one. Imposter syndrome runs very high in the entrepreneurial community, specifically the online entrepreneurial community. Often entrepreneurs will shy away from launching their business or their product because of doubt, or procrastinate on posting a blog because it just isn't good enough yet. But think of it this way. You have to have some sort of success to feel like a fraud in something. It's counterintuitive. So when you achieve something, instead of feeling proud and good about yourself, you feel like an imposter, like you don't deserve it, and you only achieved it purely because of luck or a fluke. So therefore, you're actually not able to make connections with your achievements. So how exactly do you know if you're suffering from imposter syndrome or just self-doubt? Obviously, self-doubt is a natural feeling. It's not a great feeling, but it does come naturally in our everyday lives. But if you're overly confident in every single thing you do, it can cause recklessness. That's why self-doubt is natural and normal. So how do you know the difference? Imposter syndrome is not just like feeling like a fraud. It entails so many other things. You get overwhelmed with your insecurity, perfectionism, procrastination. You simply feel like an imposter. It's natural to feel self-conscious, especially when you're doing certain things that push you out of your comfort zone. It's healthy to have that balance in your life. If you're new to something, you're not going to feel 100% confident about it. Being insecure means you care. It means you want to keep trying and keep going. Clinical psychologist Dr. Valerie Young says not all imposters feel the same way. It depends on your competence type. So there are 5 different competence types that I'm going to break down for you. The perfectionist, the natural genius, the soloist, expert, and the superwoman or superman. So if you're the perfectionist type, you want everything to be right. Anything less than 100% is a failure. I know a lot of us can consider ourselves as perfectionists in certain aspects of their life. But as a perfectionist with imposter syndrome becomes a lot more extreme. If things aren't literally perfect, you have completely failed and you might as well not even have tried. A natural genius thinks that they need to get things right the very first time and it needs to come very easily to them. These people tend to have done really well in school and that it came really natural to them. So afterwards, when they are out in the real world and they don't succeed right away at something, their life becomes a nightmare. They don't know what to do. Now, the soloist has to work on things completely by themselves. If they don't achieve something by themselves, they don't achieve it at all. They don't feel like they actually are good at the particular thing if they work together as a team or with a partner. So in a team setting, the soloist doesn't count that as a victory. It's just another fail in their eyes. The expert feels like they have to know everything before they've even begun. They must have all the information beforehand, and they tend to bottle up a bunch of information, learn lots of knowledge about a certain subject before they go and try something. A lot of the time, the expert actually doesn't even bother in trying things because they don't feel 100% about it. And finally, for the superwoman or superman, it's basically a perfectionist, expert, soloist on overdrive. They have to be 110%, 110% of the time, and if they aren't, they have failed miserably. There is no room for mistakes, and there is no room for growth. You can also look at imposter syndrome as two different sides. The overworking side or the crashing into a hole procrastination side. With imposter syndrome, you have massively high standards of yourself. So if you don't reach those standards, you're an imposter. But sometimes you just don't even know where to start. When you feel like there is so much on your plate, especially if you're the expert type, then you need to have everything prepared beforehand. And sometimes it's just simply too much to do, so you don't even bother trying. Or if you're nervous and anxious about the way you think something might turn out, you just don't bother. You think, what's even the point? Then you avoid things and it builds up in your head and causes you more stress and anxiety. Or you can be the overworking type. You need to be prepared and you spend all of your time getting prepared and gaining knowledge that you completely run yourself down. So now you're probably thinking, how do I overcome imposter syndrome? Well, the most important thing is to recognize these thoughts and the way that you are feeling. Recognize more than just the self-doubt. Recognize the obsession with perfection, the way you make yourself feel. Thoughts aren't facts, but often we think that they are, and they tend to take over with insecurities and negative thoughts about ourselves. You need to see the uncomfortable in your life and know that it's a natural part of life. Acknowledge that your insecurities are normal. You're only listening to the thoughts inside your own head, not anyone else's. Building up self-awareness is very important. Be aware of the whole person that you are. Imposters spend too much time thinking about the negative things in their life, and they become attached to those things. But if you can acknowledge the negative things and take those areas as just places of growth, then you will really improve your thought process and how you look at yourself and your goals and your achievements. What really helps is if you write things down and you look at it and you add to the list every single day. Write down the things that have gone really well and each day add something to it. It'll make you happy. It'll give you a moment of joy. So read it over and remind yourself of these things, especially when you feel like your imposter syndrome is taking over. This way you're shifting your focus to the positive things in your life, the things that you're proud of, the things that make you feel good, instead of the negative aspects. Open up your mind. If you're always thinking about the negative things, you're going to become connected to those things. So change your mindset. Write down the list of everything good that has happened that day. In today's society, A lot of people struggle with imposter syndrome, especially online. They create this Instagram or Facebook profile to portray a certain way of life. They want others to view them in a certain way, so they put on this facade. Even in person, a lot of people put on this certain facade. Maybe they dress in really expensive clothes because they want people to think they live this rich, extravagant life, when really they don't. Or they post all these vacation pictures on Instagram to think that they're traveling the world and doing all these different things, when in reality, they're really not. People want that white picket fence kind of life. Your usual, I want a white picket fence sitting on my deck drinking chocolate milk while watching the sunrise kind of life. And you try to portray that, whether that be on social media or just in your day-to-day routine. But think about why you're actually doing that. Are you doing that for you? Or are you doing it for other people? Do you want to view yourself that way? Or is it strictly because you want others to view you that way? Imposter syndrome is a way of protecting yourself from judgment and ridicule from others. Protecting yourself from failure. It's healthy to think about your big goals in life. The things you really want to accomplish. The things you strive for on an everyday basis. But it's also important to recognize the things you accomplish on a day-to-day basis in your regular routine. It could be as simple as making your bed in the morning. That day, you got up extra early, you cleaned your room, your kitchen, whatever it may be, you washed all your sheets, and that was a success for you. That's great. Acknowledge those little things. It doesn't always have to be focused on the big things in life, because those things tend to overwhelm us. So appreciate the small things. The most important thing when dealing with imposter syndrome is expressing yourself. There are probably lots of other people out there that are suffering with the same inner thoughts of doubts and insecurities, but we just don't talk about it. We hold it in and we suffer. We battle with our mind, with our thoughts. So when you're scared of going after something, remember that fear doesn't mean you aren't ready. It means you're on the edge of growth. Separate your emotions from reality and facts. Notice that your thoughts and emotions are really helpful. But when you're anxious or insecure, those feelings color the way you're thinking. They have an impact on your thought process and the way you're dealing with things. So you need to take a step back and try to get a new perspective on the situation. How would someone else think or feel about this? Maybe a family member or a friend. How would they react to the situation? Feeling like a fraud in your own life is very scary. So consider the source of your feelings. Would other people feel this way? Why am I feeling this way? Is it for me? Or is it for the way that I want the outside world to view me? Recognize your thoughts and your feelings. Know that it's okay to have self-doubt and it's normal to have insecurities, but it should not be taking over your life. Be yourself and accept all the failures as places of potential growth. Use your mistakes to learn, not to be down on yourself. An imposter doesn't see areas of growth, but a real human just dealing with everyday things sees failures and ups and downs as growth and learning experiences. Learn to love your mistakes. Learn to love your failures. Actress Natalie Portman talked about her self-doubt that she received as a Harvard student in her 2015 commencement speech. She wrote, "I felt like there had been some mistake, that I wasn't smart enough to be in this company, and that every time I opened my mouth, I would have to prove that I wasn't just a dumb actress." Many people that we view as successful suffer with imposter syndrome on a day-to-day basis. We just don't see it because we look up to these figures. We look up to these people as having their life together and feeling proud and happy and people supporting them. But that's not always the case. In Natalie Portman's situation, being an actress and a Harvard student are two completely different worlds. So she felt like she just wasn't good enough, that people thought she wasn't good enough. And so you get wrapped up in your own thoughts of I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. Why am I doing this? What are other people thinking? What am I thinking? But we need to recognize that we are good enough and that we do deserve the positive things, and we do deserve to work for things, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to pick yourself back up and try again. And it's okay to not be 100% of the time. Thank you for listening to Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Solosky, and I really look forward to sharing more information on living a healthy, successful, and happy life next week with you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast, part of the GSMC podcast network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitchers, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC podcast network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast.